Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the May meeting of the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission, and I'll call this meeting to order. First matter of business, would like to ask Councilman Ronnie Martin to lead us in prayer and the pledge.
We have to do that. Please bow your head. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this opportunity to come together as a city and as a family. We're thankful for all those that are represented on this board and what they do individually to make Murfreesboro a great place. We're very thankful for our staff and for those present in the audience. And Father, we're also mindful of how important these times are. We had a recent election last night, yesterday. We hope that those who have had the opportunity to continue to serve will serve us well. We ask that you be with those that were not successful in that venture and be with us as we lead and attempt to make good decisions for the city of Murfreesboro. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Ronnie.
Yes, sir.
Our first matter of business, if you will, look in your packets and look at last month's or our last meeting minutes, and then I'll entertain a motion to accept and approve those.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. So, okay, so our first item after that is Thomas is going to lead us a little bit in our financial report for the last 9 months.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of commission. In front of you is a financial report for 9 month or our third quarter report. It's broken into two sections. It's revenues and expenditures. If you'll see, for general recreation activity income and most all of our facilities, we're hitting our revenue goals. We're right at 93% of projected revenue, so we feel confident we're going to exceed our revenue goal for that. The other section to that is the St. Clair Senior Center, and they're at 70%, which is where we want to be at this time. A lot of their revenues are grant-oriented, so those grant funding comes out. So we feel confident we'll meet revenues on all of the revenue side. On the expenditure side, based on salaries, part-time salaries, as you review, we feel confident that we will be able to stay within our budgeted allowance. We don't see anything that's going to step us outside of that. So this is mainly for update, just to share with you where we're at and give a itemized line. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on either the revenue or the expenditure reports.
We like good news. Anybody have any questions for Thomas?
I'll have one. Thomas, there's a substantial increase from a revenue standpoint in the Richard Siegel Park 9-month rolling projection. What do you associate that with?
The completion of the turf fields.
Okay, so we weren't expecting them to.
We didn't budget for that, so we just didn't want to handicap ourselves in case there were delays, whether there's so many things contingent on the completion of those fields. So, but as soon as they came online, we went on and started charging for them and charging for use.
And same thing with the athletic sports camps. Is that tied to that as well? Or?
We saw a need within the community, and we expanded. Brittany, our athletics supervisor, expanded camps. So we added camps. We increased the number of participants. It's such a popular camp. In addition, last year we increased the fee, so I think it's at $100 per camper. Now we take $60 for 6 weeks, and those camps are now full, I believe, aren't they?
Thank you.
A very popular camp.
Is that going to establish a new baseline then, based upon the success of that as we move forward?
Absolutely. We'll take this year's revenues at the end, and we'll use those for our projections for next year's budget. So we did increase that line item. We looked at where we were at and increased accordingly in this year's budget. So we'll continue to do that each year. So.
Hey, Thomas, I'm curious back on the soccer stuff.
Yes, sir.
We had an anticipated number of $60,000. You said we weren't really budgeting for any rentals, what was the $60,000?
That was the turf grass rental per hour rentals. We typically budget for our normal tournaments and our normal usage. But when those turf grass fields came online, we charged at because we didn't have set fees, we went with a base rate that commission approved when they first came online, and it's $120 an hour.
I got you.
And so we've got 4 completed now. We anticipate having 3 more online by the end of the month or 1st of June. And I think we've got an item so we can reset those fees and look at that.
So we did anticipate some revenue.
We did. We anticipated our normal tournament. Right. Siegel Park typically generates about $20,000 to $30,000 a year in facility rental fees. One of the reasons that we put the turf in and stuff is so that we could increase that, and so.
Gotcha.
And then on your designated donations for the Senior Citizen Center, looks like we had looked at 1,800 and came in with 4,000. Can you just talk about that just in general?
That's generally seniors that have really enjoyed it, or family members that have enjoyed the facility and they want to give back, and so we have a designated donations item there. We currently, the staff at Senior Center has taken out all the old benches, and so we're hoping to use some of those designated dollars to replace those benches. And typically with the designated donation dollars, we try to buy something material that the donors can see and use.
Good.
Very good. Any other questions? Okie dokie. Next item on the agenda, Rachel, you're going to discuss some changes in our special use policy.
Yes, I am. The staff is recommending a couple of adjustments to that special use policy. The Parks and Recreation Department already utilizes this type of agreement for park spaces outside of normal events, such as just your normal rental, family reunions, birthdays, and whatnot. The current policy does not include requirements to apply for this special use agreement for an event that is designated to distribute food. So that is the proposed changes. You do have a copy in front of you, and the proposed additional language is in red, kind of denoting that specific language. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Rachel? If not, do I have a motion that we approve this special use policy adjustment?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There's none. Thank you very much, Rachel. Very good.
I want to take this moment to introduce Allie Jones. Allie Jones is part of a pilot program the city set up with MTSU to have working internship, and we labeled as an executive internship, where it was a paid position. But Allie went throughout the department and spent the last 13 weeks. She worked with athletics for a good portion of that. She worked with Outdoor Murfreesboro, and she worked at the Senior Center. So she got a well-rounded experience. But one of the things Allie was tasked with doing was to create a project, something that would be meaningful and have an impact and a positive impact on the agency she worked with. And so that's why Allie's here to help to present that.
Thank you, Thomas. Good afternoon, members of the Commission. Thank you all for having me. Today, I would like to take this time to discuss the Coach's Code of Ethics policy. While working with the athletics department over the course of my internship, I was able to experience the nature of competition from a different perspective as a site supervisor. We all know that with great competition, conflict can and will arise. In implementing the policy, we hope it will help prevent conflict, as well as to serve as a reference point as how to react in difficult situations. With extensive research, I have also found many professional sport organizations who have adopted and utilized an identical policy, such as the National Alliance for Youth Sports, as well as National Youth Sports Coaches Association. In all, a coach's function is that of a role model, especially when considering youth. The main purpose of the policy is to secure a certain standard of coaching as well as to provide guidelines for professional conduct, thus promoting the safety and well-being of all parties involved. We recommend the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Coaches Code of Ethics policy to the Commission for approval. I will be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Allie. Does anyone have questions for Allie?
I'll ask one, just keep everybody honest, right? Allie, were there any specific instances that prompted us to look into this? What were we trying to achieve by doing this?
Basically, I've analyzed as a site supervisor, there has been some unnecessary comments towards, refs and fans and stuff. So, stuff like that.
Thank you.
And of course, it kind of fell in with some of the things in the news now and some of the behaviors that we're seeing within our youth sports and stuff. It seemed fitting that we take a step forward approach. So I commend Allie for bringing that to our attention. That was something that we could add to our program.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea of having the coach. I've had to do these in different organizations, that I've coached in and things like that, and so it is very typical that these things do exist, and I'm glad to bring it to us. One of the things that I'll kind of mention is that, not really having a chance to read through all these, one thing you got to be careful about when you set policies is to not leave kind of too much subjective language in the policy. What a personal desire to win could be viewed a lot of different ways by different people. That's and so I would hesitate to make sure. I'll hesitate to go forward with approving all this until I had read it. I don't know if everybody else has. Just kind of make sure in a policy we just got to be very careful to do that kind of a thing to make sure that those kinds of opening. Because if a parent comes back to us, we just got to know they're going to say, well, in my opinion, that coach was doing this, and it could be very subjective, right? I mean, I almost would rather see some specific. We expect people not to be yelling at the referees. I see that in here, right? I mean, those kinds of things. Treating them fairly is again, a little bit subjective sometimes. You know what I mean? So. I don't know. I looked at the consequences. The consequences, it's not like anybody's going to jail over this.
Right.
So
And, we have a default policy, too. So our disciplinary policy handles anything that we would deem so inappropriate that we would have to take any kind of action. So this is more of a help coaches kind of put it in their hands to say that they're going to behave themselves and they're going to, make them aware of what kind of standards we want to uphold. Any behavior that, we deem a violation of our policy, we're going to deal with that individually.
Okay.
Well, the biggest thing is that whatever we're doing is easy to be consistent.
Right.
That's going to be the thing. Going back to your comment about subjectivity, if there's any kind of wiggle room at all on that, I guarantee it's going to come up and they'll say, well, you treated this person this way when this happened and you did it differently here. So I would just ask us to be mindful of that piece, because consistency is going to be what everybody kind of hangs their hat on. Definitely need to have it. Good observation there. Unfortunately,
We can certainly take it back, review it, and bring it back to you.
yeah, but that's just a consistency piece, is how easy it is to actually put in place is going to be really important.
Well, I commend you for recognizing that there is a need to establish somewhat of a moral compass with this. It appears that the best way to address the subjectivity would be to convert it into a diagnostic instrument, so that, and put it in, formatted in a rubric kind of document, so that it is measurable, to eliminate the difference in opinions and observations, particularly from very passionate parents. What degree department are you earning your degree in?
Leisure and sport management.
Okay, you've got great faculty there. I'm the former dean, so I know. So you have done a great job. And of course, you will get to that point where you will need to develop a diagnostic instrument.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say, as you talk about the ethics for coaches, what about the ethics for parents and those out in the audience do you have? Now, say if you have rude parents or people out in the audience, you know, that's yelling at the coaches, cursing the coaches. Now, are these people removed from the sporting events?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
We don't tolerate any foul language within our youth program. That's included in our disciplinary policy. So, I mean, I think
That applies to everybody out there.
that's anybody.
Yeah,
That's,
okay,
you know,
okay.
whether it's coaches or not. We certainly can move towards looking at something for the parents for the future. I think starting with the coaches,
Right.
We get that down where it's, like I say, measurable and it's some pretty clear lines there, and then we can look at parents. Unfortunately, parents aren't volunteering for us. Coaches are volunteering, and, you know, it's not a right. It's an honor and a privilege to get to coach and volunteer. So this would say that we're setting a certain level of standards for those coaches.
I think it makes sense. Since I kind of brought it up, I'll make sure I sort of qualify this a little bit, just that, you know, all these things, you read through them and they all just make perfect sense. I mean, you know, first and foremost, you know, these are all things that we would want of our coach for our kids, right? Is to kind of commit to these things on here. I think just that level of where I'm looking at this is just kind of to make sure we're not opening up some doors to corner people based on opinion or to punish people based on opinion, you know, because sometimes we all know, if you've had kids, I mean, sometimes parents see things a different way based on the amount of playing time their kid gets, or based on some, you know, how many times their kid struck out, or what, you know. We're all open to that, and so we just have to be extra careful, I think, on these things of, you know, we need these volunteer coaches too, right?
Right.
We need good ones, and we don't want to put people in a position that they're getting, you know, not that they wouldn't commit to this, but just need to make sure we're extra careful on it is all I'm kind of saying. We just look through the language carefully. All the points I think are wonderful, but just look through this, and maybe I went too far to say everything should be measurable. I don't think so, you know, but I can just say that something that says I'm going to provide environments free of drugs, alcohol, that's, you know, you're not measuring how many drinks somebody brings in. It's just that, you know, that is something that you can look at and go, that's against, I'm doing something about it, you're out.
Right.
You know, I mean, so those are very clear cut, very little subjectivity in my opinion, where some of these others might have a little more of it. So.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding up and down, so is it the commission's want to postpone this to maybe the next meeting and study it up a little bit more?
You okay?
Yeah, we're fine with that. Yeah, absolutely. We can look at that. And
Any other discussion?
Can I
Anybody else?
ask a quick question, Mr. Chair? And again, I commend you on this work, and I think it really recognizes the leadership and the influence our coaches have on our students and the kids in our community for sure. I guess I have a question for you, Thomas, and you said we do have a disciplinary policy in place.
We do.
So would it be appropriate for us to reconsider this not as a policy, but as a set of expectations? And I don't know if that might have a different, because I think what Councilman LaLance is saying is true as well. We talk about that policy language versus these are the expectations we hold for those who are coaching.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
That was great.
Councilman Rick, what are your feelings
Great.
on that?
All that sounds great. It's something to that effect, I think, is wonderful.
Sort of a code of conduct, if you will, rather than a specific policy.
Yeah, just a pledge.
Yeah.
Katie recommend just make it a coach's pledge, and that puts it back on them and takes out the scrutiny, because any corrective action that we take, we're going to base it on the city disciplinary policy. So if we suspend a coach or we put a coach out, it's based on the disciplinary policy that's built into our system. So, yeah, it would be more of an encouragement for coaches to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Just
Well,
a
I'm
reminder.
sure before you let anyone coach anyway, you do more of a thorough background.
Oh, we
check
do a
anyway,
complete
you just
background
don't let
screening, of
yeah,
course.
right. So it's not like somebody just come in and say, I want to coach.
Right.
Girls softball team, you do a
But
thorough.
keep in mind too, like when we do basketball, we're looking at 300 coaches. We have 160 teams, usually 2 coaches for each team.
Right.
So to keep that going year after year, we get a lot of new coaches. They're new, this is their first time ever coaching, and we help them along. We provide them the resources they needed, but we develop those coaches. And this will be a really good tool when developing young coaches.
Right.
It's a really strong document. Absolutely. Because it not only has implications for the coaches, as the superintendent has said, it also has implications for the students who are observing the behaviors of the coaches.
And I also noticed the fans reflect the attitude of the coach as well. So,
Spoken like a great student at TSU.
You're not supposed to know that yet. That's kind of supposed to be like my age before you recognize that kind of stuff. Wait, are they screaming because the coach is screaming?
Yeah.
Okay, well, why don't I make a recommendation, or do I have a motion for approval of this Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation's Coaches Code of Ethics pledge?
Yeah.
Does that sound better with everyone?
Yeah.
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 I'm fine with however y'all want to proceed with it. I think, any of these documents we can tweak or whatever. I mean, I'll just kind of tell you the one other thing I meant to say earlier is kind of, words like fun and challenging can be, I can go up. What's fun to some people is challenging, and what's challenging to other people is not so fun. It's just sort of hard. So I'm sorry to be a stickler on it. I'm perfectly fine with moving along with it. Nobody's going to jail over it. They're all good. I just want to make sure we're careful about how we are handling it if we're really falling back on the disciplinary policy. I'm good.
We'll put this in the review we review our manual of each program every season, so that at the conclusion of each season, we have a program review, and we review that manual, making changes that need to be made before the next season, and we can include that in that review. So after we get through one season, we see that maybe there's some tweaks that need to be made to it.
I'll make that motion that we approve this as a pledge.
I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Allie, thank you so much.
thank you.
Job well done and well presented. So, very good. Dr. Duke, thank you for your good suggestion there. Next item on the agenda, John Powers is going to give us some information on an affiliate team program.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you all for meeting with us today. First of all, just on a personal, I just want to say thank you all for leading us with prayer and pledge today. My wife and I are what I like to refer to as refugees from the state of California. So let's just say out there, I presented at many council and commission meetings, and we don't start those off with prayer and the pledge out there. So it's very nice and refreshing to see, and I really appreciate that. So thank you. But down to business, the reason I'm here today is to present to you guys the affiliate organization partnership program that we're proposing for the Siegel Soccer Complex. Essentially, it's a new partnership program that we are looking to implement for use of all of the grass and turf fields at the Siegel Soccer Complex. It's mainly targeted at the youth organizations that use our fields. Currently, however, we're also open to new organizations partnering with us as well. It's not exclusive in any way. Essentially, we are looking to charge a fee per season or per year up to the discretion of the partnering organization on a per player basis. And we are offering a discount for Murfreesboro residents because at the end of the day, our goal is to provide the largest benefit that we can to residents of the city of Murfreesboro. So with that in mind, we implemented a $15 discount per season per player for Murfreesboro residents as opposed to non-residents. So for residents, we're looking at implementing $135 per player per season or $270 per year. Again, that's up to the discretion of the partnering organization. And then for non-residents, that would be $150 per player per season or $300 per year. Benefits of partnering, or benefits for the organization partnering with us under this program would essentially be established practice times. They would be guaranteed 1/2 grass field and 1/2 turf field for practice each week. They would be provided grass fields at no charge for games scheduled, depending on availability. There would be priority scheduling for the organization for Tennessee State League or TSL games. And then they would be able to book our meeting space, again, depending on availability, at no charge. And then they would also have priority scheduling for tryouts Monday through Thursday, which they normally hold during regular seasons towards the end of the season. So that's essentially the partnership in a nutshell. And then, of course, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have on this.
Questions for John?
I'm on a roll today. So, first of all, I kind of give everybody a little heads up on this, just kind of, I've got a pretty intimate knowledge of the soccer facility and the programs and all that kind of stuff that have been used, we've used over the years. And again, I apologize for this, but, I want to say to everybody, it's important that you understand this very well before we send this on. Because it's going to affect a whole lot of families in our city and in our county. So just, you kind of need to make sure this is the equivalent of if you don't have somebody in soccer, you got kids in baseball or whatever sport, you're talking about a charge of $130, 100, whatever the number is, $135, $170, $200, $300 for a year. You won't hear about it, okay? This is not... board isn't elected, but these two are, and there's one trying to be, and there's another bunch that'll have to, I guess, I assume this will come to council after us. Will this come to council?
I don't think so.
Okay. So if it doesn't come to council, even more important that we understand it extremely well prior to voting on it, okay, and what the implications will be. One of the things I'll kind of say right away, I guess I could just look at this and say 2 comments right away. For me, I've been the big stickler for years and years about the discount for the city residents. I don't think this is even close to being enough. There are people who pay taxes to build that facility and to run that facility, and there are people who do not. A $15 difference per season, I mean, it's a 10% difference. It's a 10%, what amounts to a 10% discount.
So that's what we're thinking, 10%. We can certainly increase that. Keep in mind that this is for select travel soccer.
Yeah.
Rec program still provided. We still play rec program at the Jordan Farm. There's roughly 1,000 players in that. So that's still being provided. This is in addition or for select. This is to guarantee training sites.
So just for everybody's understanding, whether you've had kids in other organizations, not just soccer, but I know like in some other soccer clubs, when you're playing in a club that's not in the county you're in, you pay. The people who are in the county don't pay any.
Gotcha.
As far as like a player fee or a usage fee or a field fee, a complex fee, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a $0 to a couple $100 for the people who are coming from out of town because they don't pay taxes there, right? So to me, a 10% number for this is just not even close. And again, this is just one person's opinion. That's why we have boards. But to me, pay taxes versus not pay taxes, $15 just doesn't cut it for me. So that, and then also I might suggest, I also know because of the way we've built out Siegel Soccer Park, you might want to have priority in here. The 2 different organizations, U.S. Club and then the USYSA on the other side, which is how Tennessee soccer comes down through their hierarchy. Even within USYSA, there are regional league games that, of course, they're running and doing right now. And then on the U.S. Club side is the ECNL, which we've had a couple of big events out there through ECNL already. I don't know. to what degree we give them priority, but those are very important games. They are very important games to our community, especially when the teams are from our community. And so just, that might be something that I would add those in addition to the state league.
Keep in mind, this program primarily affects Monday through Thursday. It's during the week. Now, teams will have their weekend games and stuff, but we'll still book fields and book state league games and games like with ECNL games. All of those will still be booked just like we've always done. We're not changing that. This is just for that practice during the week, Monday through Thursday. Basically, this guarantees us that revenue as opposed to renting here and there and it being a convoluted schedule and these organizations charging what they want. We won't be able to tell the parents, this is what you're paying for fields. Whatever your organization is charging you, this is the fee that you're paying for the use of the field, and then you're guaranteed this amount of space each week, and those coaches that want that. And we've taken this from the coaches and teams. That's what they've asked for, that they would rather have a team fee, because some teams have 8 kids, some teams have 15 kids, so really it's hard to say per team. So when you go into the individual space, it's irrelevant whether a coach carries 12 on his roster or 13 on his roster. Everybody's still paying the same to train.
Kind of a quick question and I think you addressed my first one, which is what is the problem this is trying to address? And am I understanding correctly, the problem being we may have teams that can't consistently get a practice field, and so this is their way of...
Currently, it's first come, first serve. Now, we have some partner organizations, but we're right at about 65 travel teams, right, roughly. We expect that to grow over the next few years. This facility can handle, I think we run the numbers at 74 teams, right?
We're right at about 80 with this program, about 80 teams.
We could take 80 teams total to train at that facility and make that their place to train.
Okay.
Once we get past that 80, we're trying to put a system in place so that they're guaranteed that time. And we'll do practice times like a draft. It'll be very similar to what we've done with some of our other facilities, where we'll bring all the coaches together and we'll just do a draft of those preferred times each season. So everyone has a fair shot at getting their premier time where they want. But
at what rate are we growing per year?
We have it depends really. It's going back and forth. Like one group will have more than the other group. It kind of goes back and forth. But we're looking at about 5 to 10 teams a year with all the organizations. We have a third one that has come online. And again, that's just because they didn't like how this organization is doing it, so they've made another organization. So we're looking around 5 to 10 a year. They do tryouts in the end of May, and the new season is from the fall to this May.
And we got 65 now, and our ceiling is 80. Mm-hmm. So we got a year.
Mm-hmm.
Well, keep in mind
you got to think that's just Rutherford County. That's mostly just Rutherford County teams. There is some wiggle room there, but we like to keep at least sometimes a field or two for rentals. But if we're going to max it out, that's right at 80 teams to guarantee them 2 practice times slots.
To Rick's point, was there any dialogue at all about this issue of taxpayers versus non-taxpayers?
We did. That's where we implemented a 10% discount for that.
Well, what were the fors and against for what you eventually came up with? You could kind of, the dialogue that you had with the staff when you were discussing this, what the people that wanted to implement something and decided on 10% versus those that did, what can you tell us a little bit about the discussion at all?
I can speak a little bit on that. It's if you look at all of our programs, it's kind of mimicking what we have for all of our programs right now. It's a $15 discount for city. We kind of just kept that. I know this is, but we kind of just kept that with the 10% going through this too. But with all of our programs, like anything, if you register for, you get a discount for being a city resident. So like our summer camps, you get a discount for being a summer resident.
So am I hearing between the lines that the idea of having a more substantial difference between the two did not come up at all, or it came up and it was decided that it was too
it came up. And I put my perspective in. One was the consistency throughout the department, that we give a 10% discount. I think that's something that we probably look at as an entire department, and if we need to adjust that, I don't think anybody's opposed. My perspective on these facilities is, while these are taxpayers versus non-taxpayers, we have a lot of residents that have nothing to do with soccer, could care less about soccer. And the way they see their return on their investment is the people that we bring into our community. So when we have tournaments, and Siegel Park brought in estimated $7 million of economic impact last year. Those sales tax dollars is what's showing those citizens that are not affiliated with soccer a return on their investment. So we're trying to structure this to cultivate that, and by having these groups train at that facility, and that being the leading training facility in the area, we're securing that economic future.
But you're suggesting in it, I'm not saying you're wrong by that if we were to have a wider delta on that, your concern would be that we would be pushing people away and would not have the opportunity to get that level of return. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
As far as we can increase that, what we would need to do is increase the fees on the top side and make it more expensive for non-city users as opposed to discount it. We've run the revenue numbers. Our goal for this facility is similar to others. We'd like to generate $100,000 a year per field. That's kind of the gold standard with a facility of this type. And that's going to help not only pay for the maintenance and the costs associated with the park, but hopefully can push a little money towards capital. That there's a huge capital investment there. But cultivating a community and a culture that that is reflective of competitive soccer is what secures those economic dollars or sales tax revenue dollars to the city. That really helps justify the capital expense.
Who are some of our non-city users?
Well, we have a group out of Franklin that come in. Basically, the soccer culture is years ago we had two or three teams, and then they didn't quite get along, so they broke up into 4 teams, but they didn't quite have enough players, so they grabbed somebody from Smyrna and they grabbed somebody from Franklin, and that's just kept mushrooming. And now most of our teams, I would say, are 70-80% Murfreesboro citizens, but most all the teams will have someone Rutherford County resident or even Williamson County. Even some Davidson County. I know. In
very simple terms, though, I mean, the number of kids that drive here from Franklin or from Wilson County or from Manchester or Tullahoma is really small. It's the difference between the kids who live in the Rutherford County versus the city of Murfreesboro that is the big number. And I think if you're talking about 80% of the people on that make up those folks, that's in the county, right? Not in the city. So 80% of the people who play at Siegel aren't living in the city paying city taxes. It's probably more like half based on what the historical number has always been that are city residents. So the majority of the ones that are coming in are just coming from the county. But again, it's the philosophical piece of this from a council perspective is city residents pay city taxes and county taxes. County residents don't pay city taxes that go for stuff that we 100% fund, right? So that's kind of the big part of this is just really the county residents. They don't have a park system. They've not offered to help out with the park system from a county leadership perspective. So there's got to be some difference to me.
And you're saying that historically that's been like 50-50?
Yeah.
And it sounds,
which being in the county,
right? And it sounds like you also, when you talk about the relationship between the city and the county, they have had opportunities to participate in this as a county, and
there's always been opportunities for them to build parks, or
and they have chose not to.
You don't see very many of them.
Yeah, if you go look in the county recreation budget versus the city's recreation budget, it's a significant difference.
Yeah. So. Again, this is all kind of ongoing for years of this, that's why, to me, the 10% is not really a number. And Thomas will understand that I agree that it needs to be consistent. I love consistency, but every time that discount comes up on anything we've ever done, whether it's at the sports comp, but, you know, in my opinion, first of all, let me finish the sentence. Any of those have always been too little for me, okay? Beyond that, we didn't even do this till about 3 years ago-ish. Is that right? I mean, we didn't even have a discount for city residents until about 3 years ago. So I think the idea was that we would sort of introduce it and then get it to a more, you know, realistic number at some point after it's sort, you know, we've got some way, because at the time we were worried about mechanisms of, well, how do you track it? Are we going to leave it up to the person that's sitting there at the counter at Sportscom to determine whether or not the person is a city resident or not by looking at their license? I mean, you know, there's some logistical difficulties with, but it is there are things that can be done, and just in my opinion, frankly, should be.
Well, on this item, though, what I would ask is certainly increase that discount by doing that, but by increasing these fees for the non-resident rate, increasing on that end, because we've reduced that down. I don't know that it would be fiscally responsible for us to set our fees so low that we're not going to meet our revenue goals.
Well, just the knowledge of the fact that you built the model, you know, break even or a little profit with this number that's already in there for city. I mean, you told us that's the way we need to fold that into the piece. I think it is worthy of discussion, though, and consideration. To think about that delta between the two, particularly if it's 50-50. I'm not a stats wizard on this, but if that's really what we're talking about, that's a significant number that are not contributing. You know, if it was 80-20 or 90-10, that'd be a different discussion. But 50-50, there's a substantial number of people that are enjoying the benefit of this and are not contributing at all, if I'm understanding you correctly.
And again, think about this, again, bigger picture too. You got, you know, and this is, I have to force myself to think about this in these ways. Barfield Park, Sportscom, you know, all of these places that are enjoyed, it's probably pretty similar, right? I mean, that's just the way that we have always kind of done it. And you know, part of that is kind of okay. Many of those people do come and spend their sales tax dollars at the city, so they might argue that, hey, wait, we do have a little skin in the game. It's not nearly as much as someone who would be paying property taxes. So it doesn't necessarily be, you know, I shouldn't say a zero because they come and pay sales tax, but the difference is more than 10% to me, I guess, is what I kind of keep coming back to. Frankly, I would tell you, I'm okay if this is the number. The only thing that I'm kind of thinking about why I wanted to go ahead and bring this up now is because when we do this, it's going to be a pretty noticeable thing to ask somebody to write a $300 check, right? Or $270 check, or, you know, whatever the number is. That's going to be noticeable, and there's going to be some pushback and stuff like that from parents. We just need to understand that. I think it's legitimate and it's good, but if we set this expectation out there and then next year we come back and say, you know what, for city residents, we're going to move it to $220 and we're going to move the non-city to $350 in year two, it might get received differently and maybe feel not as consistent. So I don't know, just maybe a little thought about that is all I'm kind of asking for, and whether or not, you know, I do know we need to be consistent. I agree with that too, and so I'm struggling a little bit on this, but I just think if we go switching it in a year or two, that's going to get.
Can you clarify, Thomas, is this a pass-through cost? Because I noticed in here we're asking they have to submit names of players as well as residency status and primary home address. My assumption, though, is we're, for lack of a better word, billing the organization.
Absolutely, right.
So it's really incumbent upon the organization.
The organization to replicate that. We want to be able to tell our residents and our customers what the city's charging. It's been a long history. The leagues have said, well, we have to pay for the fields. And up until the last several years, they've never paid anything for the fields, but they're telling their constituents that. So now we want a policy. We want to be able to say, these are the fees that we charge your organization. What they charge on top of that is on to them. We've never been involved with what a select team charges or what our local leagues charge. But just like we've implemented the $10 a player for the rec league, we won't be able to say up front that that's what we charge for the league. That's what we're charging the league, and then whatever they're charging the parents, that's between them.
Wouldn't you think that the team charges should come down, with the players having to pay this amount up front, that the team shouldn't be charged?
We would think, but like I said, until we go in and pull the books on every organization, and some of these are affiliated with national organizations, so there's a lot of things that filled into that in terms of specialty coaching and the offerings each teams get. It's a wide variety. I think really the only consistency would be is them knowing what the city's charging for fields. Rick's been involved with it a long time, and it's variable. It goes from season to season, those costs do, right, Rick?
Yeah, and it's, they already have their budgets too that they're dealing with, whether, and it's a weird thing. I'm not necessarily proud of it. There's a whole thing in the soccer world. It's called pay to play, right? I mean, it cuts out some people that you wish it didn't, some kids who can't afford to pay, and there are those kinds of issues that are tough. I believe we have some policies in place to make sure that the organizations that we're partnering with have some type of scholarship arrangement. So I think all that stuff is in place. So it's important for everybody here to know that. The one other question I had about this that I wanted to ask is there something in this? It may not be in this document, but is there something in here that discusses, or how did you guys discuss, how are we going to choose who we partner with? For example, if we hit 80 teams, who are we running out? Or is it going to
right now we're able to take on the newest. We have 3 organizations: TSC, MSC, and then this Legacy that also has started up. So we've got those 3 organizations that we know are affiliated with Murfreesboro. As you know, to be an affiliate team program, they have to have a governing board made up of Murfreesboro citizens. We put all those things in place several years ago. So right now, we only have 2 organizations that meet those criteria. Now, the 3rd organization is currently working on it, and they're trying to get to that point. But if we don't have the space, we can't take on any new organizations. We've got 3 right now. Of course, MSC is our local league provider, so they provide the local league for us. So they're number 1 priority, and then TSC is the next group, and we'll just take them in chronological order as they come. But once we hit our cap, now this package is including only outdoor surfaces and outside fields. We do have the indoor training facility that we hope to come to you midsummer with another complete package on training opportunities and fees for that facility itself.
Any other questions? What's the commission's wish here? Is someone wanting to make a motion that we accept this recommendation, or would you rather study it?
I think it warrants some additional discussion. I think Rick makes a good point, and I think I would see this facility maybe a little different than Barfield Park or
oh, absolutely. It's more in line with the Adams Tennis Complex.
That's where I was going. So maybe even golf, when you start talking about the capital outlay, maintenance expense, and the specialized use of that and who is using it, I think there's great harmony and consistency across the board, but I do think there are times where you should be inconsistent, and there's a very good reason to be inconsistent. And I think we're probably leaving some on the table here. But to your point, that probably requires some modeling to figure out what does the overall price need to be if we're going to adjust those. And so I'd probably like to see that, just personally.
I think we look at our tennis fees as well, because they're both falling in the same line. And we have the 10% at tennis. I think we would need to look at that as well. So
we need to charge a lot there, for sure.
Used to. Just like so many other things. Used to.
Okay, well, I think I'm hearing, if I don't have a motion to accept the recommendation, we'll wait for some more discussion, and maybe bring it back up at our next meeting.
And thanks for the work. I know it takes a lot of time and effort to get to where you get to make this recommendation, so that's not lost on us, so thank you.
Very good, y'all. John, very good. Thank you. So,
And little direction there, you'd like for us to kind of model a different percentages?
I think what I would say is, in the spirit of a greater participation on those very specialized sites, of what a greater pro rata share of the county could share with that, to make sure it still meets the revenue expectations that you have.
We can certainly look at that.
thank you. Good discussion. Very good. Next item on the agenda, Rachel's up, and you're going to tell us about some changes at the Wilderness Station.
Yes, the staff is recommending adjustments to the operating hours at the Wilderness Station. Currently, the operating hours during the summer season totals 80 hours per week from mid-May to mid-October. The operating budget allows for 4 part-time staff dedicated to the operations of this facility. This year, with current staffing trends and pay scales, it's difficult to hire the needed staff to cover these hours. It is recommended that we decrease the operating hours during this time frame to 56 hours. With the current staff, we would be able to cover that. So decreasing these operating hours will have a fiscal impact, but we feel like that we could make up our revenue loss through programming and events.
What is the current staffing?
The current staffing is 2 part-time staff that are dedicated to just the operations. Now, there's more staff that work out of the facility, and they're dedicated to programming, and currently they are filling in a lot of those shifts right now.
And you're obviously much more up close and personal than we are on that, but what type of pushback are we going to hear about cutting those hours from 80 to 56 in your opinion? Right.
You know, that's a great amenity to have in that park. The trail system back there, we have a lot of hikers that are on a nice schedule and are used to having bathrooms open and being able to get a drink afterwards and whatnot. So I think it will have an effect on that. And, you know, we've looked at the hours where we can target those regular users as best as possible and make sure that the operating hours remain open for them.
What does it look like in practical terms of what the change is going to look like at the Wilderness Station? So from where you are today to where you're talking about making the change, where does it go? What's the difference going to be?
The actual hours?
No, really more the use, when is it being used? And as we're talking about closing that window, what is the window today and what will it look like if you do this? Right, so,
you know, the Wilderness Station does change with the seasons based on when the kids are out of school. So I think in the spring, fall, when the park is heavily used back there, it's a lot of early morning hikers and then after work people that are coming in at 5 or 6. During the summer, we've have various camps and kid programs, and then people just coming out with their kids to get outside. And so that's kind of the range of 9 to 2, I would say, with those kiddos. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, kind of. It's prompted me to ask another question. So is it mainly a staffing issue, finding the people?
It's definitely a staffing issue.
Okay.
Yeah. I would rather not change the operating hours. We've had these positions open for several weeks and have had very low applicants, and the applicants we've had just won't be able to work the schedule.
So this is where we always get, or you can get to, out of our lane and some of this stuff. But these are part-time positions?
They are part-time positions.
Part-time wages that we're talking about. We've talked about modifying part-time wages across the board.
We've made that recommendation, but we won't be able to do that until July 1st. So until then, we're kind of froze at the wages we're at, and we're not getting applications. It's significantly lower than what, most of the.
What is that compensation level today?
It's $12 an hour.
And in your estimation, what would it need to be in order for you to fill the head count that you need to have it open 80 hours a week?
I think 14, around that range. just compared to, you know, Chick-fil-A and Walmart, it's hard to compete.
Have you presented that in the past and been shot down? That increase in that wage number?
We've looked at the part-time, and, you know, I think that we are making progress, and hopefully July 1st we'll have a different outcome with our part-time staff wages.
So potentially we could, assuming that that is the issue, we could mitigate that for next operating year. But we can't do anything right now when the season starts here in a little bit.
Right. And I would love to see, you know, if things change July 1st to reopen those applicants and see if we can, you know, get staff in and be able to train them in time to increase our hours back to the normal operating hours.
Do we have headcount issues based upon wage situations in other aspects of Parks and Rec?
We do, yep.
That's a citywide thing, unfortunately, I think.
Any other questions for Rachel? Do I have a go ahead, Rick.
We need a motion on this? As I assume so I'll make the motion that we approve it, but I will kind of caveat it with, I think, you know, perhaps Ronnie and or myself can look at the possibility of doing something for July 1st. I don't know, not, you know, it might just be, that might be more across the board than just here. And I don't know if that'll really solve the issue. There's still going to be some gap. I mean, even if we, you know, got together at council tomorrow night and said we're going to raise, you know, part-time wages tomorrow, right? It's still going to take some time. There's going to be a gap, and I'm assuming there's a few people getting worked to death out there. So I'm going to make the motion that we approve it.
Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? There are none.
Guys, I just want to apologize. I've got an event with my daughter here in about 20 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut out of here in just about the next 5, so I apologize on the front end.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, Rachel. Good job. Susan Higgs, you're going to tell us about Perform Murfreesboro.
Yes, I am. We're wanting to change, of course, the fee schedule for Perform Murfreesboro. For the last, I would almost say, even when Terry was here, it's been $25 per year per child. We love that number. We love keeping it very, very small, but because of increases in everything else and some of the structure changing, we, with that membership came a free gift and a membership card. And that's kind of where we're still wanting that membership not to cost anything and let it be a free membership now, but charge per play. And we would like to charge $25 per play because we're actually giving T-shirts for each play now. The parents have requested it and staff were pretty excited. So now for each play, instead of just a T-shirt once a year, they get a T-shirt with the play that they've just done on the back, with Perform Murfreesboro on the front, each play they participate in. They also get a cast gift and a cast goodie bag at the end of the play. We'd like to make that membership free and then charge each child $25 per play. And I have talked to parents, and we kind of talked about what that would look like. And the majority, I would say all of them, have still said that's the cheapest game in town. So they're very willing to do that, and they don't want to lose the T-shirts. T-shirts went from $8 to $16. So we're just trying to mitigate that price that we're putting out.
Can I ask, how many plays might a child be in the course of a year? We
have 4 to 5 plays a year. So they can audition if they meet those age requirements. Our sweet spot is 10, 11, 12-year-olds, and they usually can audition for every single play.
And about how many children are involved?
We have 40 to 50 kids each play, and sometimes those are repeat kids, and sometimes those are brand new kids that only do one play with us.
And of course, we've got our policy in place for people who need some help.
Anyone with free or reduced lunch will come, there's no charge.
And the other thing is, it doesn't look like you've changed pricing for 10 years?
Probably more like 30, but I didn't want to pull that up. It has definitely been the last 10 years when I've been boots on the ground there, so yes.
Well, don't be afraid to tell it like it is when you're talking to us. Sometimes we need to get hit with that 2x4 right here, so.
But this is still very reasonable. It's not going to break any of our families. And if there was any problem with them not being able to afford, we would take care of that and absorb those costs.
That's awesome. I think it's important for them to have a T-shirt too. So.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
As a mother
T-shirts.
a professional actress, I believe every child deserves an opportunity to perform. Now, her teachers probably would not agree. But I think it's just really very important that these opportunities are available to them.
Yes.
Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the price change to perform Murfreesboro?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There are none. Susan, you're still up. Gonna tell us about the Battle of the Bands.
Is there something else? Oh, it is me.
I thought it was me for a second. You had
No, it's me. So we did a brand new program in March. It's called Battle of the Bands, where we invited local bands to come and participate and have a competition at the theater, at the Washington Theater. Each band had to register a $50 fee, and they had to perform 2 original songs. And it had to be family friendly. We charged $10 at the door for tickets. We had 2 industry producers there as the judges, and then the audience also got to judge. It was a great event, and the winner received $250 from the city. It was hugely successful. The bands loved it, the crowd loved it, and we hope to be able to do it again in the future. But I just wanted to share with you that it was a really unique event, and we hope to continue with it.
How many bands did you
We had 7 bands.
All right.
So it was really cost effective for the city too, so it was great. We had an MC, and our poet laureate was the MC, so it went really, really well.
Well, I know from experience, my son has a band with some of his buddies, local buddies around here, and it's hard for them to find a venue to play in locally, because
Yes.
they can't afford to go out, and they're not big enough to go out of town, but this gives them that opportunity.
And we're looking at doing more of those types of events at the Washington Theater so that the community can come and offer. We have tons of wonderful musicians in the area and give them that opportunity to perform.
Very good. Any other questions for Susan? Very good. Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. Okay, Rachel, you gonna give us a bunch and take us home.
Will. Real quick, before I want to invite all of you Monday and Tuesday of next week, May 9th and 10th. The Recreation Department is partnering with Special Olympics and MTSU to host the Spring Games. It's been a couple years. 2019 was the last year it was hosted. So we're excited for creating a unique experience for Special Olympics athletes on Monday and Tuesday. We'll do high school and adults on Monday from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then on Tuesday and Thursdays, we have elementary school and middle school. So we're hoping by breaking it up into 2 days, we can create that world-class experience for these athletes. We want to invite all of you to come, and Rachel will be hand out the awards. We could certainly use you guys, our dignitaries, to hand out the awards.
And I just want to say we are so excited to have this back. We have missed it the last couple of years, and our athletes are very excited to be back on the field next week.
Thomas, where will this take place at Murphy?
At MTSU. The MTSU Dean Hayes Track and Field Stadium. Yes, sir.
I was thinking, okay.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of events coming up. I'll just run through them as quick as possible. The first one is our coffee marathon. It's open for registration right now. The deadline to complete the routes is May 31st. So this is a really fun event. You can walk or run the 26.2 miles, but it's divided into 8 different routes, and you can do those at your choosing, 1 per day, 1 per week. You can do them all 8 in one day if you wish. So you would take your coffee marathon passport to the participating coffee shop, and then after all 8 routes are completed, you'd bring your signed passport to Patterson Park and receive a coffee marathon mug. And the next is our Community Bike Day. This is Saturday, May 7th from 10 to 2 at Barfield Crescent Park. This is a partnership with Moab Bike Shop. And so they will be on hand going over basic bike maintenance tips, bike inspections. They'll have prizes and giveaways, training wheel instruction area, children's bike rodeo from 1 to 2, and the Grill Sergeant's food truck. So that should be a fun day. We have homeschool days at Cannonsburg Village. The theme is working with water. So come outside and students will experience some of the old-fashioned chores using water. They'll probably get dirty and wet, so dress appropriately, but it will be a fun time. Reservations are required by May 5th, so that's coming up quick, and admission is $3. The next is our annual Barfield Beach Party. You don't have to go all the way to the ocean to find a beach. You can come to Barfield Crescent Park, where we will have over 60 tons of sand to create a beach. And it's a good time for all. It's one of Thomas's favorite events. Hopefully he'll be there to make a sandcastle for us. We'll have music and dancing and a variety of games. So that will be at Barfield Crescent Park. We'll start at 5 o'clock, and that is May 13th. Also coming up is World Turtle Day. This is May 21st, and it'll be at the Wilderness Station. It's a day dedicated to our shelled friends. We'll have family-friendly activities in the Wilderness Station and around that area, live animal demonstrations, music, and much more. The time is 1 to 3, and I'm excited that at the end of World Turtle Day, we are bringing Farmer Jason back. If you guys have any kiddos, they will probably know him from PBS. He puts on a great show and gets them all wiggling. So that will start at 3 o'clock, right after World Turtle Day at the Wilderness Station. And then it's about time to jump in the pool. We've got our Memorial Day Madness at Borough Beach. The pool will actually open the Saturday before, but the Memorial Day Bash will be on May 30th, and you can enjoy a day of swimming, music, fun, and prizes. The time is 10 to 4, and cost is $7 for adults and $5 for youth. Then we have the big run. This celebrates Global Running Day, and this will be Wednesday, June 1st, 6:30 p.m. at Gateway Island. It is $25 per person, but it is a 5K, and you can register online through runsignup.com, and a t-shirt will be provided. Then also, if you've got your running shoes on, you might as well go ahead and register for the middle half, which also opens on June 1st, starting at 6 a.m. And that is also on runsignup.com. And then finally, we have our Juneteenth event. And like last year, we have 3 days that's dedicated to Juneteenth. So we've got Thursday, June 16th from 5:30 to 7:30 is Authors Night. There'll be meet and greets and discussions, book signings, and giveaways. And then Friday, June 17th from 4 to 7 is Kaleidoscope. And it will have a whole bunch of collections for mind, body, and soul. And then it will culminate in a full day on June 18th, Freedom Day, and it will have fun activities, food vendors, crafts, art, something for everyone. All of these events will happen at Bradley Academy Museum and Cultural Center. So come out on all 3 days for a good time. And then, sorry, you can find us murfreesboroparks.com, where we have a calendar of events, and it describes all of our programming, as well as on our many Facebook pages. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
We're truly blessed to have all the programs and events and the staff to take care of us all. So thank all of y'all very much. Anyone else have anything to add before we adjourn? And there's no other new business. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.